Welcome to The Empty Canvas, the podcast about how creativity begins. I'm the host, Pascal Anson, and today I'm joined by contemporary metalworker and artist Amy Christensen, designer, maker, silversmith.
Artist.
Artist.
I'm trying to get that word in sometimes.
Artist.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, but then everything just becomes like a forward slash.
And then I need to work on my title.
Yes. Well, not today. I think we should maybe start by explaining how come we know each other.
Yeah, I was thinking that. We met at the Royal College. I was a year above you.
Were you?
Yeah, that's a lot.
You graduated in 1999?
Yeah.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
And we were on different floors.
And you were in, why I said silversmith is I think that also sounds like quite mystical to a lot of people. More than contemporary metalworker.
You know, I agree. I've stopped using silversmith because people immediately assume it's jewelry, which it absolutely is not. So I let go of that one. And also I don't really work in silver very much. So that's stopped me.
So does silversmith not really encompass kind of more the heritage just work? Yeah, because otherwise you'd be a goldsmith or what's the one for the person that works in copper? Don't they all each have all these like incredible names? Depending on what metal it is you work in.
Yeah, I think so. But I don't work in one stuff. It's just metal.
Okay.
My rough is for all metal.
I'm super excited to talk to you about that. I've been so looking forward to seeing you because it has been a long time since we've seen each other.
Yeah.
But also, I think what's interesting for me to talk to you about metal in terms of the empty canvas. The empty canvas is a concept in terms of it could be a literal empty canvas like this, but it can also just be the starting point. And it's interesting, just even that little bit of information about you saying that you love metal. I'm really interested to explore how metal is the starting point for all of your creative process.
Yeah. It's funny that you find that really interesting because for me, it is a given. I never doubt my material. It is always metal. So that's in a way the easy bit. I imagine you work in all sorts of materials and it's a different set of decisions and processes.
Am I imagining it, or did you do a plastic vessel at some point? Was there a laser plastic?
Powder coated steel.
Oh, that's still metal though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. I would.
No. It's good. So there's no question about the material that you're going to start with. So that's already, as you say, it's kind of easy. It's taken care of.
Yeah, and I think part of the whole empty canvas, that sense of free falling through. You have nothing to hold on to. There are too many possibilities. I have already given myself a confined space, some sort of confined space to work in, to bounce up against, because I've chosen my material.
So I always think rules make you creative. So if that if your confinement is one material, it's about trying to push that to the absolute limit.
Absolutely. And I used to, at the Royal College, I started this project, which was to give myself extremely confined spaces to work in, and it lasted for 8 years. And then I couldn't bear it anymore. But it was that everything I made had to be made from single piece of metal, and I couldn't add or remove anything.
Oh, my goodness.
You
couldn't remove anything?
No.
Oh, my goodness.
It was literally, this is what you have. Come on. How far can you take this? And it was really brilliant for a long time. And then I became a bit trapped in it, and I was like, oh, this is rubbish now.
Yeah.
But it got me somehow. It helped me transition from being a student to being in the real world, because I left college with that in place, and that was really helpful.
So I've got a little bit of a mantra to do with exactly what you're talking about, which is make the rule, then set the tolerance, and then maybe sometimes break the rule. But I think what you're talking about there is your rule was metal, and you had an incredibly tight tolerance, which was that you weren't going to remove or add anything to that. And I think that, well, it's not really a mantra, but I think it's a phrase that I use to kind of help explain creative process or to help somebody kind of put their own thoughts into some sort of structure. But I think like that thing about, it's very interesting when you say you did that for 8 years and then you kind of stopped because maybe it reached its limit, or that tolerance had become too controlling and too binding for you.
Yeah, I caught myself trying to cheat all the time. And that seemed really silly because who am I cheating? I mean, just do what you want to do. If your work is evolving beyond your own limits, well then that's great, isn't it? But for a while I felt like I was naughty because I wasn't following. Yeah, that just says something about I'm buffering with.
No, but I think also like children are naughty, and I think I was quite a naughty child, and I think it was about naughtiness and creativity. I think are quite close. I don't think they're that far apart. It's just like how we frame it and how we see it.
Yeah, I agree. I think most naughtiness starts with the sort of, I wonder what would happen if I, pulled the cat's tail, or if I wonder what noise would be created, or I wonder what. And you have to keep thinking. I do think that artists and designers never fully grow up.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, absolutely. I think that thing of staying curious and still having that curiosity, exactly, of like, what noise is the cat going to make when I pull his tail? That I think is experienced by every child, and it's about, I think you translate that into your creative life and then professional life. I think that's a really sort of interesting. That's a sort of spirit of starting, isn't it? As you say, what happens if I do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
That question or that thought that's in your mind, and that comes from inside. It doesn't come from outside.
I think you're right, but I've thought about it a lot because it's such a brilliantly difficult failing to think about, and I realized that I approach new ideas, or how to get the idea in two very different ways, sort of continuously. And one of them is a bit like what you say, the I wonder what happened. And that's because I'm one of those people of thinking through making. I'm very much, I can't sketch and draw. It doesn't really get me anywhere. I only use it to hold on to an idea. But in order to really evolve an idea, I need to make something in 3D out of paper and metal, because I don't think a drawing gives me any information. I need to walk around it. So I very quickly moved to prototypes, but also because my practice is the way it is, where I only make the work really for me. I'd never work for a client. I am my own client the whole time. Every piece I make leads to the next. So in the process of making whatever piece I'm making, because metalwork is very slow and time consuming, I have all this time of just making where I am already thinking about the next piece.
Yeah. I always think that's, yeah, I know that state of mind. I always think that's quite interesting about, if you're doing a job like sanding something or leashing something in your case, or finishing some part of whatever you just made, and it's super time consuming, super repetitive. It's not creative, because all you're doing is you're just doing a process. Yeah, I think that then allows your brain to take all the creative thought process.
Yeah, I agree. It's a safe space for the brain, where you're not sort of, come on, brain.
Yeah, come on with an idea. Yeah, very, very interesting.
It's a sort of meditative state of almost, I'm sometimes seeing as unthinking. You're unthinking and unseeing. And it's sort of, you're stepping away from forcing ideas through. But I don't see that as a blank canvas in a way, because I'm already halfway into the process, because I'm making whatever it is I'm making, which has come from something.
But you were saying you ever makes it.
Yeah, and then I'm thinking, I wonder, while I'm cutting something, I wonder what would happen if I cut it slightly differently, or if I fold it slightly differently. So it's like, it's ideas that evolve at absolutely glacial speed, because the next piece may not look that different to anyone else. But if you take that whole long stream of pieces from, I've been doing this for 25 years, like you, and the first piece and the last piece, they are completely different pieces, but there's thread through them all.
So it's an evolution.
All connected, and it's in a way just one idea.
Gosh,
So that's how I work most of the time.
that's so pure. That's such a pure way of working. It's like biology. It's like evolution of a species of something that,
I'm basically God.
the god of metal.
But isn't that so? So how do you work? If that's pure, what's...
Well, no, I can totally relate to many of the things that you're saying. It would just do my head in just to use one material all the time, because I think I like to work in lots of different types of material. But also, I think it's incredible that insight that you just shared about starting in one point and then growing the next one whilst you're working on the first one, and so on, and that kind of line, if you like, of starting 25 years ago and the point that you're at today. Can I just take you back to the point where you were saying about sketches? Because I'm interested in what sketches look like to Anna in her studio, and how all that process lasts. Because you said, "Oh, I know, I very quickly jumped to paper or three-dimension terrific."
Yeah, I speak to a lot of students who are very frustrated about a sketchbook. Why do we always have to do the sketchbooks? And they feel it feels not authentic, and this is not how I work. Why do I have to artificially construct these sketchbooks? But of course, that's a separate thing. So I'm not particularly good at drawing. It's not a tool that's very sophisticated for me. So it is just any bit of paper I have, and sometimes a Sharpie, like a really fat pen or pencil, doesn't really matter. And I just scribble down
words.
Sometimes words. Words are good to sometimes describe if the atmosphere in a piece is changing. I want it to be heavy. I want that contrast. I want it to be prickly, or those words, keywords, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But then a very, very basic, flat representation of what I then will later on try and do as a form.
So can I ask you then? That's very interesting, and I'm interested in this thing of you having an idea of, and maybe I love this idea of you've got some characteristics that you want to work with, like a weight or silhouette or whatever it is. Then this moment where it jumps to a sketch, is that an illustration of what you want to do, or is it a design?
I don't think it's either. I think it is. It's almost like a shopping list. It's like milk. It's just round shape with those bits coming off. Hold on to that.
So abstract.
It's very abstract, and it wouldn't make sense to anyone. I would never show. If I very occasionally work with a client, and of course I have to show them motions, and I would never show them a drawing ever, because
it's for you, and it's not for someone else.
It's purely to hold on to that moment, because I've learnt that you always think, "Oh, I'll remember that," and you just don't.
Yeah. So, what can I ask you? What does your desk look like? What not necessarily the place where you start to make, but the space before that. What I see?
I don't think I have. I would love to have a nice, clean, tidy paper desk with pens and even a dirty. It's all dirty.
Okay, yeah. We're not talking about what you would like. I think we'd all like very unusual for a studio. What would I see? What's the reality?
Answer the question. I have got a very long, narrow desk, which is for the thinking and the sketching and the holding on to ideas and sketchbooks, and it has a very narrow shelf above it all the way from one end to the other in the room, and that's where and a wall where I taped rubbish drawings and funny bits of paper, and that is really important. Just sit and look at.
Right. Okay. So we've got a surface for kind of exploring some drawings. We've got a shelf bringing some things on, maybe.
And found objects, and not just objects that have meaning, but it's very much doesn't have to look beautiful. It's not a show shelf.
No.
There's no finished work on that shelf.
Okay. And then there's some changing space behind that where you can kind of pin up whatever it is that you've been working on that week, that day, whatever it is. You stick some stuff up behind it.
Yeah, I love the way you say that week, as if I do new designs all the time.
Well, you must have been thinking about something this week. What have you been thinking about this week?
But that says a lot about how you work, because I think you have very different tempo to your practice.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and actually, in some of the other podcasts, we've been talking about speed of work. But I also think that you're quite prolific.
I am quite prolific, but a lot of it is a group of pieces that are very much brothers and sisters related. And I bet weeks and months can pass without me having a new idea. Oh, yeah. Partly because metal takes so long to work in. It's very slow. It's not like ceramics, maybe, or glass. It's very slow. And also because I like to stay with ideas for a while.
Yeah.
And because it is that evolutionary process. So, and I have maybe 5 different strands of that going at the same time.
Oh, right. Okay.
But because the work is all familiar to me, I don't need to do sketches because I know what I have already made and I know where it's going. So that's quite rare that I then need to draw because I've gone beyond the drawing. I'm just in the thinking through the making, and that leads to the next.
Mm-hmm. I love this idea that there is an idea which is not fully resolved yet, which you're still working on, and you're not looking for another idea or a new idea. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that? Because often I get asked, where do ideas come from? And if somebody asked that to you, what would you say about your own work?
Yeah, I think it's a very fair question, and it's something people ask if they're not creative. Because if you are creative and in that world, you know exactly that sometimes we actually don't know ourselves where the ideas come from.
When I got asked that, I was asked that once when I was 14 in my design and technology class at school. The teacher said I designed something which was the other 29 children had done something completely different, and I'd done the same brief, but I'd done it in a completely different way. And he was saying to me, "Where's that idea come from?"
Yeah.
And I just, I was 14, I didn't know how to reply.
But you knew that it was from you and authentic to you. It wasn't like, did he suggest that you sort of pitched it from someone?
No, he was like, well, and I probably said, I don't know. And he said, well, you must know. Did it just come in a dream? And I just probably went, yeah, it came, I've probably been. But then I realized a long time afterwards, there was a point there was somewhere that very specific that it came from. But then much later, I'd been showing my work to a big group of people, and somebody came up to me afterwards and asked, where do ideas come from? And I found it sort of like, I'd just been speaking about where ideas come from.
Yeah. Yet, it is a sort of mythical thing. Where do the ideas come from? But I think several things. One is, in a way, it's not about where does the idea come from. I do sometimes feel I have enough ideas to last me a lifetime, but an idea isn't enough. It also needs to be taken from an abstract idea. An idea isn't an object. It's not a tangible thing. It needs to be put into the real world and be functioning or whatever it needs to do. And that is an endless stream of problem solving and decision making.
My life is an endless stream of
problem solving and decision making. That is literally what I do all the time. And that continues when you are evolving a familiar idea, because there's another set of problems. And for you're working with external clients.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yep.
And so a lot of it is suddenly has a function. That's a whole other set of problems to solve.
I agree. And I think that's maybe beyond the limits of what we're talking about here, because we're really just talking about getting started and how things go from, one medium, which might be paper to, or a sheet of paper, to a three-dimensional bit of paper, to the finished material. Can you just, I feel like there's some more we need to talk about, this idea of, you have an idea which is abstract, and then you sketch it. This is what I'm understanding. You sketch it in a way which you understand, but you have this knowledge and experience of the material, so that you don't need to kind of micromanage the next bit, because you've got all this experience of knowing that abstract sketch will turn into something. And I'm fascinated by this idea of something that's abstract, a thought, a sketch, becoming like the next thing that happens after you don't want it to be abstract anymore.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think because I am so familiar with my material and I know how it's going to react, and that there's a danger there. I am aware that it's very tempting to say, "Oh yes," and then this will happen, and dun 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 dun, and I jump ahead of myself. So it's very important if you like me only working on material. I think it's important to somehow make yourself really inexperienced in that moment, as if I've never worked with metal before, and have that sort of innocent approach where this could literally lead to anything. Keep it open for as long as possible, instead of constantly concluding things because of 25 years or 30 years of knowing in the material.
Would it be fair to say that you mustn't be complacent about the material process, and mustn't second guess what's going to happen? Because I think people love to second guess. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, that will happen. Yeah. Or starting something and thinking, I know exactly where that's going to end up.
Yeah, no, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, or even, and then that will be roughly the retail price, and that's perhaps not quite right. So you already put it out in the world. But of course, it's not just about material and how it responds. It's also about whether the idea feels right. And the idea is still abstract, even if it's applied to a form. But it's sort of, do I feel that it's an idea becomes an expression of something which is then held in this material form, and it needs to be. And I think I'm getting better. The older I am, I'm getting better at knowing early on whether this feels like, is this really my voice?
Can we talk about that then? Can we talk about knowing when to reject something and when something is not going right? So you start something, and what then happens? How do you know whether it's the right thing to continue devoting your time to? Do you think you get better at that?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit better at that, but it's heartbreaking, because you think, oh, there's something. I mean, it's something floating in the air. I have a feeling that I've seen something, it's triggered something in my mind, and there is something here. This could be a completely new idea. So maybe this is a different way of working. That isn't just a continuous thread. There's something here. Oh, and I like the darkness of it. Maybe I could give it a real lightness, and it could be a really interesting conversation. All of those sort of things I want to get in there. And then I'm thinking, hang on a minute. There's something in here that feels it's either come too quickly, like when you were 14, your idea came too quickly. And then I immediately said, okay, all right, where have I got that idea from? Where has my brain subconsciously picked something up because it's come too fully formed too quickly? That I'm always looking out for.
That's very interesting. So you're conscious of unconscious thoughts which might be kind of not yours, or might have to be from somewhere else.
Yeah, because we're visual. We pick things up all the time. And an example is that I once did a piece, or I did the first stages of a piece, and I thought this could be really good. And it was something with lots of lines and lots of prickliness. And I thought, oh, there's something about this sketch that something is nagging me. And it took me weeks to work out that there was a little bit of a similarity with a logo of a children's TV program that had that logo with some black lines. And it's like, oh, I thought, I'm okay. I can still carry on. I'm not stealing someone's idea. I haven't seen some famous architect's building and I've just taken that. It's because I think a lot of this sort of borrowing of people's ideas, I don't think it's done deliberately all the time.
Well, you have to be careful because there's so much visual information, in cities like London where it's full of visual inspiration and like everything is here. But also I think on our phones, there's so much that before you know it, you're just copying somebody else's work.
But I've had a really lovely experience 20 years ago when I worked alone in Clerkenwell in a studio, and it was sort of towards the end of the year and it was a bit late in the afternoon, and I worked a lot with spun bowl forms and I sort of cut into them and stuff. And then suddenly this sort of afternoon, it was like I was packing up, but I suddenly thought, okay, so you're sort of almost zoning out. That's a good time to get an idea. Suddenly thought, okay, I could cut out a two-dimensional representation of a cuboid on a curve, and it will sort of be distorted in the curve, but it will be an optical illusion. But I've cut it out so it's the absence of the material that's showing the form on a flat surface. But anyway, it came and it was really finished. And I'm still working with this project 20 years later. I still make these pieces. And I thought, okay, right, where did that come from? And it was just such a brilliant moment where I realized that, so it's Clerkenwell, Rundell workshop, and outside my window you've been to that workshop? Yes, at Pat House.
Yes.
Outside my window for like months had been a building site where they had very carefully knocked out a Victorian block of flats, but they had to keep the facade because that was listed. Yeah. So I had this sort of two-dimensional representation of a building with the windows, with the openings, and that was like a real thing. But then behind it was this void, and my brain had absorbed that, peeling away the layers to reveal this transparent facade of a building. I thought, that's it. This is literally what my brain has been cooking for me without me realizing it. And it just came out that afternoon. And it was a really beautiful celebration of that sort of being in that studio. And it was a gift it gave me. But it was a completely new idea. However, it didn't come from nothing. It came from being in an environment where you're exposed to this sort of stuff. And it's just sort of stewing away.
That's really interesting. I'm so glad you said that, because I was going to ask you what visual research looks like for you. But I think you've kind of just explained it in a much better way, which is we're looking at things constantly as artists and designers. But I love the way you described that, which wasn't, I looked at the window at the facade that was opposite, and then I thought that was interesting, and then I drew it, and then it became a piece in a box.
That would be nice if it was worse to make me fall.
But I love the idea that that you've been looking at it for ages, and without really consciously doing it, it had manifested itself as idea, inspiration, visual inspiration, without you really, really pushing the boulder up the hill and really trying to find it.
If I sat down with a piece of paper and said, "Come on," it wouldn't ever have happened.
So do you ever do that? Do you ever think, right, I'm gonna put a fresh piece of paper in front of me and do something completely different?
It just wouldn't work.
Does it frighten you, that, or is it just not what you want to do?
No, I understand what you mean. It can be intimidating, but I just know that process is a waste of time for me. So I have to take the ideas. They often come when I'm ill, when I have temperature, so a bit.
Creative.
Happens. No, sorry. But also it happens at really random moments. Just seeing a gap between two buildings or finding some rusted, broken bit on the ground. And people, well-meaning people often say, oh, you must be so inspired having been to the Tate or seeing some show or nature. And it's like, I mean, I love art and nature, but it's completely useless to me because it's other people's work and it's already completed. So I need to find broken bits or rusty, crumbly decay is wonderful because there's a narrative. It was something once and now it's falling apart. And I love the contrast, and often there's an evidence of the original state of the material or whatever it is, buildings.
So I don't think we're that different, because I think although I don't think in those terms, I look at things which are unwanted, neglected, not used for the right purpose, and think, well, I can repurpose that. I can make something of that. But not in the same way as you. But I think the spirit is very similar.
Yeah, and I think it's because there's an opening in something like that, isn't there? Like a finished building is a shot.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. But something that's broken or has been dropped or stepped on, whether it's not the same material, but I think
it's a possibility, isn't it?
It's an opening and a possibility. And yeah, there's a way in. And also the fact that it's the absence of perfection that makes it, that there is some grit there to work with.
So would you purposefully maybe go traveling somewhere where you know you're going to find those kind of things? Would you be like, oh, we're going to a salvage yard in Poland to have a look at, it just happens to be down the road from the Airbnb, or I don't know. Would you purposely go somewhere where you think you might come across a wealth and a richness of those things that you've described?
Again, that would be really handy if I could just do that. I'll go to that salvage yard and I'll look at lots of rusty bits, and then I'll get some great ideas. And I have done that. I have gone to building sites, got funny looks of building sites, and just try to be in an environment where this stuff might be that
Do you collect it?
Yeah, I'll take it home, or
but you don't draw on site.
No.
But you won't take something.
I try and take stuff,
but with a massive bag, actually, putting things in.
If it's a little thing that nobody wants, that doesn't quite work. It has to happen.
The skinny shelf, the things.
Yeah, but it has to happen when I'm not trying. That's the problem. It's really impractical. And again, it has that sort of mystical thing. You don't know where it is. It's not where you think it is.
Mm.
And sometimes I travel and great, go to Greece. Different light, different colors, different everything. And it's a great holiday, but it's not really...
So I guess I was asking you that question about traveling because I wanted to know, finally, if you ever feel like you have a block and how you might get out of not knowing what to do next, or a block. But it doesn't really sound like you don't know what to do next.
You know what? I compare this with, I have a really good friend who swims in the sea in Copenhagen all year round. And I once went along with her New Year's Eve, and it was extremely cold and not very pleasant. And in order to make myself feel better, I said to her, like you would, yeah, but it's much easier for you because you do it all the time. And she said, just so that you know, it's just as cold for me. I just don't panic. I know I'm not going to die, which is what you kind of think you are when you go into very, very cold water. And I think there's a parallel between that and designing, or being in that process of trying to get an idea, because it's a really uncomfortable space to be in. And that, for me, doesn't change. I've been doing it for so long, I know now that discomfort of not quite knowing if you've got something, like if it's going to lead to something, that never changes. But I know I'm not going to die. I know in terms of the work, I know it will happen, and I know I'm going to be okay, and I know it's going to be a strong idea, or the next one will be really strong, or there will be something coming, and I'm going to be fine. So I don't panic and follow the raw idea because it's got to be okay. It's got to be okay. I think I'm calmer in the process. But yeah, I mean, it's uncomfortable. Sometimes I'm stuck and I have to leave it and do some physical making because it's not working.
But I think that's really great place to finish, and that's really great advice actually about not panicking and just waiting and not following the wrong path. I absolutely love that. Just before we finish, can I ask? I've got some this or that rapid fire.
Oh,
So, you ready?
uh-huh.
Pencil or marker? These are rapid fire.
Yeah, sorry, that was not right. Both.
Both. Oh my god.
Sorry, that's really bad. It's
Analog or digital?
analog every time.
Monochrome or colourful?
Monochrome.
We're getting to the way of it, though.
Yeah, and I showed it's working away.
Yeah. Big sketches or little sketches?
Little sketches.
Loose sheets or pages in a sketchbook?
Pages in a sketchbook, really tight and controlled.
Keep mistakes or bin mistakes?
Keep mistakes.
Okay.
Because,
Mistakes are good.
yeah, they're really special. They're important.
I think mistakes sometimes is where the art is, and you just don't realise. That's for another.
Yeah.
Think then do, or do then think?
Do then think.
Good. Creative chaos or calm order?
Naturally calm order. I wish I was the other, but I am calm order.
Scandinavian.
Yeah.
Background noise or silence?
Silence.
Finished or never finished?
Finished.
Never finished, no? What about the live?
No. Yes, sure. No, the line, but an object, I know there's some people who like to start a project and they jump straight in, but then they get stuck halfway. And then there's some people who don't know how to start, but they take it to the end. And I do believe you've got to finish a piece, but that's more like the individual poster. It's got to be finished.
Last question. Up all night to finish or up early?
Up early.
That's the end. Thank you very much. Thank you. It was so nice to talk to you. For now, I can't believe we've left it this long. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Amy Christensen.
Thank you, Pascal.
Thank you to my guest, Amy Christensen, on this episode of The Empty Canvas. Please like and subscribe, and maybe share this with somebody that you think needs a nudge on their own creative journey. I'll see you in the next episode.